And Chief Experience Officer of the Voluptuary Travel, and I'm getting ready to go away. And so I wanted to definitely come and be a resource to those of you who are looking to plan your own travels, get out into the world, and connect with culture along the way. And so this is something that I detailed in my blog, thevoluptuary.com. Make sure you subscribe. But I wanted to come and circle back to share part one because I do have a few of these of what to know before you go. I don't take it for granted that I've been to 57 countries. I also don't take it for granted that I've been doing this for a very long time. And so for me, being able to be your personal travel teacher is a blessing. And I'm still learning myself. And so I feel like in order to really maximize travel experiences, it's supremely important to be prepared to go away and to go abroad or even domestically. It's important to have some type of cognizance and awareness around, where you're going and, what you can possibly do in the places that you're going. And so a big part of my work with my clients is helping them to get ready for their departure by walking them through some of these processes. And I really wanted to come in and be able to be a resource to all of you by doing the same. And so when we talk about getting ready to travel, there are some really specific things that you should know before you go that will prime you to be successful and will also really allow you to connect with the culture before you even touch down so that you're not necessarily caught off guard. And so this is part one. I definitely have a few more of these, but I like to kind of just, ease in there. I was an educator of high school and middle school students for many years. And so I've just learned that you got to start at the baseline and then make sure to continue and build as you build your level of knowledge and practice, right? And so the first thing you want to know before you go, this is particularly true for international travel, right? You want to make sure that you know the currency, the exchange rate, and the forms of payment. So I am getting ready to go to El Salvador, like I said, and I actually was inspired to go by my client. I had a client of mine, she's my forever client, and she came to me to do her first international trip, even though I've planned a few domestic trips for her in the past. So I was super excited. And like I say, I'm a travel consultant because the relationship is not simply, one off. So we were talking when she came back, and she let me know that even though I had, given her itinerary with the currency and the exchange rate, that they actually accept USD in El Salvador. And it's very common that you can pay with US money and that it's not an issue. And so I was really appreciative of that insight. And so that's why I added that one of the first things, if not the first thing that you should know, is the currency exchange rate and forms of payment. Because if they do accept USD, then you want to make sure that you're going with, your money kind of broken down into smaller bills, especially if you want to tip, especially if you want to just be able to not have to deal with getting a lot of change back. It's good to travel with five, tens, ones, and, 20s. So that way, you're not in a scramble trying to make calculations. Another reason it's important to know currency and exchange rate, especially, is because even in countries that accept USD, they will often give you change in their local currency, right? So let's say you're in a taxi, or let's say you're kind of doing an activity where they don't have access to USD. They'll give you change in their currency. So if you don't actually know the exchange rate, you're going to be stuck trying to figure out, okay, did I get enough back? Like, how much is this? Like, what is going on? So it's really important to be familiar with the currency of the destination you're going to, the currency by name, right? So that you're not calling everything the dollar. Everything is not called a dollar. That's our currency, actually. Um, and you want to make sure you know the exchange rate and what forms of payment they take in the country so that you are prepared before you arrive. All right. So that's really one of my biggest rules of thumb, is to be aware of that. And there are lots of apps you can download that keep you, abreast of the actual day-to-day fluctuations in the exchange rate when you're traveling as well. The second thing you want to know before you go And I find that I think that this is relevant to domestic and international travel, but you really want to know your airport entry and exit plan. What many people don't know is that many airports actually have a bus that will take you from the airport to the city center. In my years of travel, this has saved me a lot of money of knowing when I touch down, how am I leaving the airport? Do they have this type of bus? Because if they have this bus, and I'm traveling on my own, I'm able to take the bus and know that I'll be in the center, plan how to get to my hotel, and make sure that my plan is kind of in place before I arrive in the country. It's also important to know the airport entry and exit plan because you want to make sure that um, you have an idea of the pricing, how much it'll cost if you were to take a taxi, if you were to take get a private ride, how much is that going to cost you? And by knowing before you leave, looking up, okay, how are we getting from the airport? That will help you get a sense of how much you should be paying to get a ride to the city center. Or if you can actually take public transportation, take the city bus, get to the center, and then continue on if that's something that works for you and how you're traveling. But again, knowing how you're going to get there, how you're going to get out of the airport once you arrive, and taking care of that before you go actually saves a lot of hassle. One of the things that I do for my clients all the time is I book their transportation, and it's really nice to come off the plane and to have that sign with your name on it, and to not have to worry after traveling for hours on end. Wait, how am I going to get out of here? Trying to haggle, trying to figure out the price, trying to deal with language barriers if you're traveling overseas to a country where English is not the main language. This is supremely important to know before you go to reduce stress, to get an idea of the price, and to make your travel a little bit more smooth in the process. The third thing, and this might sound obvious, but when I went to London in 2007, this was my first time going to Europe, and it was after I graduated from undergrad. I didn't do this. I did not look up the weather. And a couple of trips after that, I was a little cold, just out, in the elements, quite literally, because I was not aware of the weather and climate where I was going. So it is really important that before you go anywhere, you look up the weather, you get the 10-day forecast so that you know if you need to pack, a travel umbrella, if you need to bring a raincoat, if you need to have a jacket, and also just to get primed to what to expect. Even though a place might be hot in the daytime, the temperatures might drop at night. You might need to have, a scarf, a little jacket in case that breeze is hitting you. But let me tell you all, I was in London, and your girl, I am very petite. I was freezing. Okay, I was cold. And I had a little tiny jacket, trying to be cute. I look at the pictures and I laugh every time because I see all the different ways I try to be warm. I tried to put a bunch of layers on, all of this stuff, all because I just did not know the weather and the climate. And really and truly, knowing the weather and the climate is important because as you pack, you can pack accordingly. So that's really something you should definitely know before you go. And it helps you also anticipate where you're going and what all to have with you in your luggage so that you're prepared. The next thing I always say is, I started traveling as a backpacker, and in the backpacker community, being a tourist is kind of shunned. It's like, oh, that's the touristy thing to do. Like, don't worry about that. But me, no, I advise everyone worry about that. People, it's like people coming to New York and not thinking to go to Times Square because it's a touristy place. No, like I want to see all of the lights. I want to be where everybody's at. And, orienting yourself in the touristy things to do is a good introduction to where you are going. This is, you may discover what the place is known for. Obviously Paris, Eiffel Tower, right? But there's so many things around that area to do, right? And so it's really good to anchor yourself in knowing what are the tourist things that you can do in a destination, because it helps you get an introduction to the place. Now, I have some more stuff coming later that will help you figure out how to get a little bit deeper. But I do think that there's nothing wrong with figuring out what are the touristy things to do. And that is definitely where I would say Google is your friend, where you can put your destination and type in touristy or tourist, and you'll see all the things that come up. This applies to domestic travel as well as international travel. And some interesting things come up about what you can do and what you can see. But you definitely want to do this before you go so that you're not using your time in country or in state trying to figure that out. At least you have a sense of what you want to do when you arrive. And the last thing that is also important for international travel, especially. You know, we are in a very diverse world, but I think we live in a bubble, right? If we, as Americans, we definitely live sheltered and we don't get access to many things. And the things that we do hear about is often skewed by the media, skewed by, limiting beliefs and limiting perspectives. Something that I've come across very often and very it bothers me a little bit, is the idea that people can dress, however they want, wherever they're going. And that's just really not the case. So I think it's supremely important, especially like I said, if you're traveling internationally, to know before you go what is the country's national religion. Or predominant religion if it's not the national state religion, right? And the reason I say that is talking about packing, talking about cultural norms and just cultural awareness. It's supremely important to know where you're going and what the general population is observing or what they observe or what they expect. You don't want to go to Dubai. You don't want to go to Abu Dhabi and think that you're going to get access to lots of alcohol, right? You're going to have like be able to be with your partner and be like kissing in public and not these are things that have actually happened, right, that I've experienced and I've seen people go through because they just didn't know that these are Muslim countries that really have kind of strict rules around stuff like that, around PDA, around dress and things of that nature. And so again, I'd like to be your travel teacher. I'm your personal travel teacher. I don't want you out there making these mistakes. And if you know better, you can do better. And so I think it's really important to just be aware of what the national or predominant religion is in a country. I think it also allows you to find things to do. I was able to travel to my first mosque when I went to Malaysia, actually, because they are a Muslim nation predominantly. I was able to visit a Hindu temple as well, just because that's another major religion in that country. And I was so humbled and appreciative of that experience. But I only knew to visit those things because I had done my research before going, right? And so I just want to make sure that, as we look to go away and as borders open up and as things kind of change, that we are prepared by knowing, by having, education around what to know before you go. And so obviously, I'm always looking for people to, subscribe to my website. I have a bunch of blog posts that go in depth around all of these different topics and more. And I really hope that you consider subscribing and being part of the Voluptuary community, where I am on a mission to connect you to the world via the five senses. That is it for me for today. If there's anything that you have any questions about, please interact, please engage. I'm happy to be a resource, as I've said, and I'll see you at the next travel chat. Bye.